What is up, y'all? Welcome to the Three Wiggle Golf Show. I am Cole, your host, where we talk shop, always go for it in two, and never ever three putt. First, thank you all for being here. If this is your first time, welcome. We're happy to have you. We are on season 2, episode 2. We have another guest on the show. Her name is Dr. Haley Perlus. She's a sports psychologist, author, and in our last few minutes, I've discovered highly active. Burns a lot of calories. We'll leave it at that. Haley, welcome to the show.
Thanks, cool. What did you say? Never three putt? Was that?
Yeah,
was
never
that?
three putt. Yeah.
Well, I won't tell you how many three putts I had on Sunday then.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to reiterate the negative, right?
Yes, we don't. We don't.
Yeah, I understand. So yeah, like I said, you obviously you wrote that book, Personal Podium. I've been listening to it. I'm about 80% of the way through it. So as we kind of before, like I said, I've got some questions here for you, but just kind of briefly tell listeners about your background, sports history, growing up, things you did, and then how you got exposed to sports psychology. You obviously, you reference that in the early part of your book, but for listeners that haven't read your book, don't know you, just kind of give them a little, more knowledge about you.
Sure, cool. I got lucky. I got lucky when I was 12. I grew up in Toronto in Canada, and I was an alpine ski racer. So that was the sport I eventually chose to focus in on. And when I was 12, I was competing in a junior world championship. And right before I was about to compete, my coach pulled out $100 Canadian bill, put it in front of my face, and told me that he bet on me to win. He then told me that he lost betting on a different athlete who was competing in a race the week before that I was not in. And he looked at me straight-faced and he said, "I am not prepared to lose today." And then he pointed me in the direction of the starting gate, because at that time it was my time to go, smiled and told me to go have fun. So in that moment, I was at an emotional and a mental fork in the road. And this, I think, is what we all need to understand, not about sports, but in life. We are always in this emotional and mental fork in the road. For me, on one hand, I could have felt anger, fear, worry. How could a coach bet on her and tell her right before she's about to compete
Right.
what a mistake?
My
And on
gosh.
the other hand, hey, if my coach believes in me so much that he's willing to put money on it, why shouldn't I believe in myself? Now, I believe that he didn't bet on every athlete. I believed that he groomed me. He trained me mentally without me even knowing it for this moment. Because I do remember thinking, wow, that's super cool. If he has high expectations, doesn't that mean I'm doing something right? So I went down that race course. I did win, which was great. My coach congratulated me, kept the money for himself, but he said to me, "It's amazing what your performance will be like when you get your head straight." And then 2 weeks later, he brought a sports psychologist to come and speak to my entire team. Cool, I kid you not. I went home at 12 and I told my parents that this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. Sports psych.
Gosh. It's pretty rare that people know, kids, we'll say 5 years old to, 15, 16, saw, however many months or whatever sports season it is, it's like, this is what I want. This is what it is forever. But it's really rare for somebody to actually see that at 12 years old and then that be like come to fruition like the rest of your life. That's pretty remarkable, I think.
Yeah, super, super cool. And now I apply it to all sports and all real levels too. I just want to help everyone quiet down their mind. Doesn't mean not think, and we can go into that, but quiet down their mind, control their emotions so that their body can do what they've been training it to do.
Yeah. What do you think, looking back on that experience of him saying, "I bet $100 on you"? I mean, that's that puts a I mean, you could call it necessary, but it puts unnecessary pressure on you, right? Like you've trained, you've done the preparation, you just want to go execute like the way that you've prepared to do. So obviously coaches don't do that,
Yeah, we're not
today. That's not a routine practice that coaches take.
right. Yes, you and I are not telling your listeners to go and bet on their athletes and tell. Right.
Correct. Yes.
But, let me share with you one of the greatest interviews. I still use it today, even though it's probably over a decade. But Tiger Woods was once interviewed by the late Ed Bradley. And the question was asked about how he's able to embrace the pressure. Because he was expected to win from obviously everyone. but also he expected himself to win. And he says, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he said, I believe there's so much pressure on you, your senses are heightened, which then allows you to have a heightened concentration, which allows you to zone in and make things happen. So there is the story of pressure creating distraction, pressure creating anxiety, fear, worry, frustration, anger, pressure creating, we call it a body that's braced. So like in golf, you need a smooth rhythm. You need momentum, you need fluidity. You won't have that. It's like every muscle is just tense. And so now you literally are like your stick, right? And then, or that pressure creates this energy inside you that flows through you all the while, heightening your senses, heightening your concentration, and allowing you to zone in on all the reasons why you can and the one thing that you need to do. So for me in my ski racing career, in that moment, wow, my coach has high expectations. That's cool. Doesn't that mean I'm doing something right? What am I doing right? Well, I've won every race so far this year. This is a technical course. I'm a technical skier. So now I'm thinking about all the reasons why I can. And then what's the one thing that my coach tells me that I need to do? Pole plant, stay forward on my skis, pole plant, pole plant, pole plant. Heighten concentration because of that pressure. Good things can happen.
Wow, that's really remarkable. See, that's something like, I've never thought, I've never considered, but I mean, it makes like the most logical sense. Tiger played like in the zone, if you will, right? Flow state, whatever you want to call it. Certainly more than any other golfer alive ever has in their career. But they're obviously greats across all the sports that had that ability to do that more frequently than not. I can say in my golfing career, I've only ever done that one time, and I can specifically recall a critical moment towards the very end where there were those reasons exactly that allowed me to that could have allowed me to blow it, and it got me so heightened from that perspective, that I was so laser focused on it that I overcame the mistake I briefly made and still executed and got the job done. And so that's not something I'd ever like thought of to draw back on and reflect on from that experience of when that round of golf happened. But to hear you say that and put it into those words, like, oh wow, that's hugely beneficial to me right there. That's something to think about moving forward. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And what you experience, so even though you may have had a lousy shot beforehand or a lousy hole beforehand, we can't, a lot of people have that, right? It's like, oh, because they suddenly loosen up. It's almost like they have nothing to lose. So there's that emotional and story that takes them to the next hole where they then play amazingly. We can't rely on that, and we don't want that in order to have a good next shot. But what you just explained is that whatever you did, you had your reset, you vetted that emotions, you use that emotion for energy instead of like, I look at it as like a flowing river instead of a swamp. So if it's anxious energy, it gets stuck inside you, and then it's like a swamp just pooling, getting muddy and muddy and muddy, and you get stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. If it's energy that you can use as a flowing river, now you've got fluidity. Now you've got a great coordinated swing, and you were able to take that energy, use it for that. And then when you found flows because you were so zoned in, flow state is you're so focused you don't even realize how
yeah,
focused you're at.
100%. It was the blackout that you hear described. That's what it
Yes.
was. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so good for you for knowing what that feels like. The hard part is putting pressure on yourself to do it again and again and again because it doesn't happen often. Obviously, exception of Tiger Woods, maybe.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly the case. It hasn't happened since this is 3 years ago now, that this happened. And so it's like, I want to duplicate it. And so,
Well, that's going to be your quickest way to never have it duplicated.
is it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Flow is not, you can't force that. If I can dive into flow, I can share something that might help everyone.
Please.
The creator of flow. So there's been many researchers since the founding father and many books, but the creator of flow, who wrote the book Finding Flow, his name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Say that, yeah, you're not gonna be able to spell it, but say that
Well,
10
no, I
times.
just wanted to write down the Finding Flow book.
Finding Flow.
Yeah.
Okay. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He Hungarian American, so he's no longer with us, but he was, I believe, in Illinois, a professor there for many years. He wanted to understand what made people their happiest. And what made people their happiest was stress, but in a way where their highest level of ability meets the highest demand. So the demand and your capabilities are matched, but at a high level. So that's pressure. That's you having to show up. But and that would be like the perfect zone, peak experience, flow state. But he also talks about two sections, just above and just below. So just above flow state is what he called the arousal zone. And that's when you challenge yourself just above your current level of ability. So maybe you're going to grab a different club to challenge yourself, right? Or maybe you're going to focus on, some type of technique that your instructor gave me, but you haven't really implemented it on the golf course yet. So you're just going to challenge yourself just a little bit. If you go too high, you hit anxiety. And that's not good because you lose confidence. So you can challenge yourself just a little bit. But there's also something right below the flow state, which is the control zone. You still have to show up, you still have to put forth effort, but now you're going to control yourself just below. And if you can give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, maybe you're going to be in control zone for this shot. Maybe you're going to push yourself and go a little bit of arousal. If you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, most often you'll find flow state more.
Wow. I hope everybody was listening to that. You know what I mean? Like, when this goes live, like I hope what you just said. I mean, because I think there's so much value in that. Because that's the play. Like you said, you can't force getting into flow, but if you can get into control zone more frequently, you're gonna find flow more often.
Yes, because you're still showing up, you're still being present. Now, there's a whole other pieces of his little pie chart. There's anxiety, there's worry, there's boredom, there's apathy. But we want to stay away from those areas. And how do we? By focusing on getting yourself in a control, arousal, and closing the gap towards flow.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to get into flow a little bit more. That was a good tangent, but I don't think I'm finished with it. But I got other questions we gotta get
Okay,
into. Okay.
cool.
So what are the most common sports? Obviously, you grew up being like skiing predominantly, but again, whenever you guys listening, you listen to a book, you read it or whatever, you're gonna find you've worked with athletes across multiple sports. So kind of dive into that, and then is there commonalities? Like, is there a kind of your bread and butter that you find like for whatever reason you just work well with in that sport and those athletes?
So when I first started out, I really wanted to, which may be a really good lesson in and of itself, because I'm always talking about pressure and embracing pressure, but I also think that sometimes we put a whole lot, and you mentioned this before, called unnecessary pressure. And if I was coming out newly as a PhD in sports psychology, and now I suddenly wanted to focus on sports that I never played or had no experience in, now I'm adding unnecessary pressure. I've got the pressure of practicing sports psychology and the pressure of learning new sports. So I started out in just my sport of ski racing. It was also where I had access. But now, 20 plus years later, I'm all levels, all sports, but I find my niche is, you know, I love for whatever reason right now, like 17 to 25-year-olds who are getting, just ready for that next level. And I'll tell you why, because I really pride myself on helping athletes become their best competitor. Now that's very different. And, golf is actually a perfect sport to say, how can I do it on the driving range? Or I can do it when I'm just, casually playing, but then I enter a tournament and I suck, or
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
I can't make it happen. And so that is the perfect example of you may be a great athlete, but now you need to become a better competitor, even if you're not professional, even if you're weekend warrior, recreational, just do masters. So that's the kind of level or mindset that I just love to work with, taking their athleticism and teaching them how to be the best competitor that they can be so that when they do go into the tournaments, they now say, "Hey, that's the player I know I am."
Yeah, I think that's great. Golf is interesting like that because it's driving range. It's unique to golf in that the driving range, the field on which you practice is not the field on which you perform. Right? On basketball, soccer, skiing, you're practicing and rehearsing all of the technical movements on all of the plays and offensive, all these things on the actual field you're executing on. Whereas when you go to a driving range, there's no obstacles in your way. There's no trouble. So you have to get on the course and actually play the course and have like course management, which is something that you can't learn on the range. And I think that could partially be something that is leading to what you're describing, where there is so many golfers that, oh, I can flush it on the range, but I can't find the center of the club face when I get to the tee box.
I actually think people who compare their range play to their course play are doing themselves a huge disservice, and
I totally agree.
they're actually their confidence doesn't so if their confidence is suffering, that's one of the greatest contributions to low confidence is comparing your range to your course play. Range is range, course is course. Do not compare your performance. They are, in my opinion, they're two separate entities. And it isn't the only sport. I will say my sport is ski racing. In the sport of ski racing, you only get one shot at the course in a race. You get to inspect it and then you have to race it. Where in training, you get repetitions. So if someone comes to me and they say, my
Not
third
on the not on, sorry to cut you off. Not on a course, you mean? Not on a trip. Like,
so yeah, they have if it's a
I don't know
training
anything about skiing.
here,
Never
I'll
been
just
skiing.
if it's a training day, they set up the gates that they go around, and then they have repetitions. They go around the same course. They ski through the same course, 3, 5, 10 times all day sometimes. But the first run is the only run that can be compared to a race run because you don't get 2 time. You don't get a
Yeah,
second
right. Yeah,
in a race. So you have to look at whatever sport you're playing and understand where is it simulated and where is it not. In golf, the range does not simulate course play.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So what other sports are you actively, working in, coaching athletes?
I mean, right now, so I have a boutique practice. So I do a lot of speaking and, content in all sports. But right now I have a boutique practice because I really want to be there for the athletes that I work with. But right now I've got soccer, diving, skiing, mogul skiing, golf, tennis, track, basketball. I actually just came off a fabulous New Balance event with basketball. That was awesome. I actually learned a lot about the culture just to see all these high school kids, being recruited for college, and now it's a huge
Yeah.
business. Oh my
Yeah, right.
goodness. Massive, massive business. Yeah, so there you have it, an eclectic.
Yeah, yeah. So you do so what I was wanting to get to is team sports. You do some team sports. Primarily, you do, like,
It's
individualistic sports, but you do some team sports.
oh yeah, like right now I've
Yeah,
got 2 soccer players, basketball,
yeah. Gotcha.
baseball too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I've covered
yeah.
the gamut.
The entire spectrum, basically.
Yeah. I haven't done pillow fighting yet. I haven't worked with anyone, and believe me, it's a sport. We just saw it on ESPN a couple of months ago. It's like they're in this boxing ring with pillows,
Yeah.
and I had not seen that sport before, so I have not worked with anybody in pillow fighting. I even just did a cornhole, I was a speaker for a cornhole league last week.
Oh my gosh. Cornhole's actually, I mean, it's pretty remarkable how good those guys are.
It is. It
And then what I
is.
also found out, not to get too far off track, but I also found out that, us, like, weekend warrior cornhole players, we don't know what 21 feet is. We have the boards at like 15 feet or something, and we think we're good. I played for the first time, like, the real distance 6 months ago or so, and I was like, I could barely hit the board with real bags too. Anyway, yeah. So have you ever worked with teams? I wanted to ask you that. Like, have you ever had the experience to work with a collective group? And maybe that's not the right approach. I don't, maybe
No, no,
organizations aren't looking to bring somebody in, a sports psychologist per se, to work with the entire collective group. Maybe it is more one-on-one focused.
no, 100%. I think it's fabulous to for teams to bring in sports psychologists, and I do that. Then we're not going to really be targeting towards the individual. We target it more towards the sport and where their team's at. But no, I think it's amazing to get the whole team involved because then they can work with each other. I can come in, you I can hang out during practice and watch. I don't want to step on any toes. All I want to do is complement the program. So I come in and I watch, and then maybe while we're stretching, I can throw out, a little tool, a tool here and there. Doesn't always have to be. I do sessions, roughly 60 minutes, let's say, or I do, half a day trainings or longer. But then there's always some real benefit in just popping in for 15 minutes and sharing a visualization exercise.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
I have seen the first 2 seasons. I don't know that I saw or is there 4? I think
There's
I'm
3 seasons. I think
okay,
there's
so
a
it's
fourth coming out, is what I've heard. But anyways,
not seen the 3rd in its entirety, I don't think.
Okay. Do you
I love it.
do you know that they bring? I do too, but do you know that they bring on
Or psychologist
the sports psychologist, right?
who ends up being the therapist for the coach.
Yes, correct. Yes. I feel like there's gotta be, and this is it's a kind of a nice segue into the next question, which is like, what are the most common issues you run into with athletes that prevent them from improving and breaking through? But my point in tying that in is like, and why I asked you about helping teams collectively as opposed to just one on one, because if there are these, let's say, same half a dozen or whatever the number is of barriers, quote unquote, that are preventing performing at a higher level and more frequently, more consistently, it would seem advantageous, just like all the guys showing up and doing weights at the same time and doing practice at the same time, working on your mental game at the same time, and having that same kind of end of course, like objective of like, hey, here's how we're trying to improve mentally. Everybody's a little bit different, but collectively as a whole, we're going in the same direction. That has to be super valuable.
Extremely. So when it comes to the mindset, and we're talking about performance psychology, mental health I feel is a little bit different, even though same, but my area of concentration is performance psychology. And if we can, as a team, create norms, create rituals, create, similar language, that allows us to, without even knowing it, we're optimizing our motivation, we're optimizing our self-talk, we're optimizing our focus because the team is again implementing this type of language and rules and norms. And then inevitably somebody will, my first ever gig, I think I was actually not even graduated school yet, but my first ever gig was I was asked to go and speak at the Olympic Center with, I think there was probably 50 or 60 ski racers. It was my sport, ski racers. And I spoke to the entire group. And then out of that, one coach asked me to come and speak to their team individually. And again, we created a common team unity. And that team unity is a mental toughness unit, right? Like
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
mental
That's
toughness in
all.
the
Yeah.
team. And then in addition to that, there was another athlete who asked if I would work with her individually because she had then had something specific, but she didn't know that I could help her until she saw how I was speaking to the team. And then something resonated, and then she went off to become the university world champion, which was super cool. So it's just, I feel like when you work with the team, you help the team, but then you also help some individual athletes who may not have known what to ask, who may not have really said, oh, you know what? I didn't really know that I had that area of improvement, that weaker link inside, and now I get it, and now I want to have help.
Yeah. Could you shed a little light on what are maybe some of the more common things you run into that prevent athletes from breaking through? I mean, there's some commonalities there, right?
100%, and it's really what I'm focusing on, which I've already shared with you, is really helping athletes become their greatest competitor. So why can I do it on the range, but I can't do it on the course? And sometimes I feel like we're not embracing the pressure as a good thing. How have you earned the pressure? What are you doing? Like, where are the building blocks that you've earned this? But I'll also be real honest. I mentioned you laughed at the beginning because no more three putters. Well, I golf, but I don't golf every day, and it's not something that I give a whole lot of. I mean, I'm there, but I don't do anything in like huge quantities because I do everything. And so I'm not going to put pressure on myself to be the
To not
best.
three putt.
I'm not going to put pressure on myself to not three putt because I believe, what is it? Don't be upset at the results you don't get because of the work you didn't do.
Yes.
I didn't even warm up. I just went straight to the golf course because we got a rain delay and then we just had to go and hit. So, um, so I therefore did not put pressure on myself, which probably allowed me to then let my body, because I actually do know how to swing. My dad taught me how to play golf many, many, many years ago. And I have my one swing thought, and I have my cues that allow me to get back on rhythm, and I know how to evaluate, not judge. I know how to evaluate my performance, and because I didn't put pressure on myself, I actually played pretty well because I let my body do what it knows to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You work within your own, parameters that you have, and you have the right expectation for yourself, which is low expectation because you haven't done all the preparation to expect not three putting or a score at par or whatever those markers are. Yeah.
In fact, I didn't set an outcome goal, period. Now I set technical goals for myself. I
Have the
set
same swing thought every time.
Yes,
Yeah,
I set strategy goals for myself. I didn't have an outcome goal because I don't even know what that outcome goal would be. And so that's another thing where I think people get it wrong. We put pressure on ourselves. So is that pressure earned? Is that pressure warranted? If it is, let me teach you how to embrace it. If the pressure isn't earned, if it's not warranted, let yourself be and go and learn how to play golf first.
yeah. That's funny. It's so funny you bring that up because I actually can recall back, like, in college, I would do that, and I would like, so I it's a lesson I learned late. I didn't start playing until I was 17. So when I'm 23 playing in college, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go out and shoot 65 today. And I put this expectation in my head and this way unnecessary pressure, which now I've learned, a little later in life that hey, just focus on the process, focus on your preparation, and let the results be what the results are. You shared something about Yannick Sinner, which is somewhat unrelated, but a little bit tied in, and it's that he doesn't, because he lost that day, he's not judging himself harshly. He just lost that day. But tomorrow morning he's gonna wake up and execute his routine just like he did every other day prior. And that's gonna culminate over time. But
It's a great lesson actually to take onto the golf course in even a more, if I may, I'm sorry
please,
I interrupted you, Cole.
yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. So Yannick Sinner lost to Carlos Alcaraz in the U.S. Open, and he said, Carlos was the better player today, and what he's not doing is letting his emotions spiral out of control to make him suddenly catastrophize the loss. And I do believe that you asked me before. I don't know that I completely properly answered it, and I apologize. I'll answer it now. I believe one of the greatest skills that we can learn in a sport like golf is emotional regulation. And one of the things that Yannick Sinner did is he didn't let his emotions come in because he didn't judge himself good or bad. Carlos was the more unpredictable player. He was the more predictable player today. To me, that's an evaluation of performance. That's not a judgment of performance. That's an evaluation. And also, one tournament has nothing to do with the next tournament. Like when you talked about your flow state, you had one bad hole, then you had one flow state hole, or maybe it was one swing. I can't remember what you said. But the same thing, like one hole, one swing has nothing to do with the next one unless we let it. And it's usually the emotions that we're carrying on. So look at every swing as a swing. Golf is a sport, it's a closed sport. There's a beginning and an end to every single shot.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you move on to the next one. It's not a continuous sport, even though it lasts forever.
That's the truth. You hit the golf ball for like a total of, 2 minutes while you're out there. And yeah. Um, no, what I was gonna my ending thought with that was just it's hysterical how on the golf course I'll see golfers who have not done any preparation, they don't practice, and they go out and then they get mad on the golf course and they throw fits, and it's like you haven't earned that right. Like the guys that have earned the right to have a quick outburst are the guys that have done tons of preparation, and the guys that have worked for it. But those guys are the ones that don't. Like I don't throw a fit on the golf course because well, one, it exposes your character and you look like a fool, most importantly. But like truthfully, you just haven't, you know what I mean? And so I think that's probably a separate, unrelated topic. That's probably more of an ego thing when guys do that, or girls or whoever. But
But it influences your game. I mean, I don't know that I've
you mean the
actually
emotional outburst?
the emotional outbursts because now sometimes it really can be just an outburst and it's a way for you to vent. Now you want to do it diplomatically. You don't want to be a bad sports person. You want to, you don't want to impact, well, maybe you do want to impact other people's mindsets, but the point being you need to gain control over it. And you can vent it in your own way, but you want to be in control of that. So you train that, you practice that. Djokovic, actually, I know we're going back to tennis for a second, but
That's
Djokovic
fine.
is actually a great, he talks a lot about it. I mean, he had, more angerous, if that's even a word, explosions on the course. And then he really had to learn how to bring that back in. He still breaks a racket here and there.
I think it was you.
I
I think
talked
it
about,
was you that you
Mhm.
talked about how he talks about a reporter was asking him something about negative thoughts and he like cut him off and was like, no, 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 no. I just get past them much faster. If I might be misquoting here, but
You kidding me? No, wow, I'm impressed. You definitely did your homework. Yes. One of the greatest lessons that I think we can all learn from Novak Djokovic, doesn't matter what sport he's in. He's a brilliant athlete and he says none of this again, I'll paraphrase, but he kind of rolled his eyes at positive self-talk. And I totally agree. Positive self-talk. We're human. Bad things happen, and we do mess up a shot, and we do get upset. So we're human. It's not about always being positive. It's about resetting real quick. It's about not letting that negativity take over. It's about using those emotions wisely. And that is what he's learned to do. And I think it's one of the greatest tools we can learn for sure in the sport of golf. I mean,
Yeah, I'm 100%. Golf specifically, I mean, that's something that's talked about in golf, I think, more than other sports, which is you gotta let the last shot go and you gotta move on. That same thought is 100% exists in all other sports. I think the slight difference is that in golf, you hit a shot and now you've got 90 seconds until your next shot or more where you're able to stew on potentially what happened, both good and bad, right? It's not great to get too high and it's not good to get too low, but you have time to let that go awry. Whereas in faster paced sports, when something bad happens, you're playing in a much more reactive state. Whereas in golf, you try to simulate playing in a reactive state, but there is these moments between, where it doesn't exist as much in other sports.
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, again, just comparing golf and tennis, you have like 16 seconds between points. Golf, you have much longer. And that's why you also can't compare yourself to the driving range. Because the driving range, you swing, reset, put your ball back on, swing, reset. Whereas golf, sorry, on the course, you don't get to do that unless you have a post performance routine that you religiously integrate into your practice, into your game. And that then allows you to not be at the mercy of your shot and at the mercy of your emotions and your negative talk. You implement a post performance routine, not just a pre swing shot, a post visual, verbal, physical. And I can identify what the examples of those would be if you'd like,
I'd love to talk more about that for sure. Yeah.
on your way. There's a reason why the pros, are journaling. One is to journal and to keep track, but
Yeah.
another
Right.
is
Right.
if you're journaling, you're not looking up. You're not looking back in a judgment way. You're making notes in an evaluation way. You're keeping the logic in and the emotion out.
No, I love that. I mean, and that's 100% a mindset I try to subscribe to is being as emotionally stable as I can. But I'm as guilty as anybody else to to fall short of that, in moments of truth, if you will, like to let the emotions get the better of me. And so, um, I would love to know. So when you say post performance routine, specifically talking about golf, because I would have to imagine, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe with a sport like football or baseball or basketball or faster paced sports, it's still true. But are you meaning like after each swing, and that's what you're talking about in the yardage book as just one example? Guys detailing, hey, what the shot was, how many yards they hit it, how far they carried X, Y, Z. But are you also talking about after the round, after
Well,
the
both.
game?
Well, both, but
No,
I was both, but I was actually more focused after, after
after the
every shot.
swing.
You walk into
Yeah,
as your hole. Sorry, as you're walking to your ball or carting to your ball. This is actually one of the stories that I included in the book, and yeah, like so there's a couple of things that you can do. So of course, if you are someone who journals, like you grab your your notepad and your pen and you write down the evaluation, like
yeah.
the
I love that you keep reiterating that. By the way, I think there's. Sorry to cut you off, but
no, it's good.
when you first said it, it hit me, and I was like, oh shit. Um, that's so true. Like, just give yourself like an objective, quick, critical evaluation and move on. Not
Oh yeah.
this judgment. Judgment. There's this heaviness tied to that.
Oh
Like
yeah.
so. I
Yeah.
love that.
For me anyways, the way I look at judge is, oh, that was good, that was bad, that was sucky, that was, oh, I didn't want that to happen. No, no, no. Evaluate. What happened?
Yeah.
Where did it go? What was how far off is it for whatever? Evaluate. Because the evaluation keeps the logic leading. Because we don't want the emotions to lead. But I also mean things like after you swing and maybe before you evaluate or maybe after. So this is when you have to figure out what works best for you. Perhaps you engage in a very specific breathing exercise where you breathe in through your nose. Can't go any further. You go a little bit further and then out as slowly as you can out your mouth. Calming mechanism. lowering your heart rate, okay? Releasing muscle tension. Good shot or bad shot. So I'm not discriminating here. Good shot or bad shot so that you get into consistency. So that might be something, physical. And then maybe something visual. So maybe you look at whatever it is. Maybe you look at your golf club, maybe you look at the bag, maybe whatever it might be. Maybe you say something, you ask yourself the same question every time. What was I focusing on? So it's again evaluating what was my swing thought? Was I actually focused on that swing thought? Did I lose control? So it's just more of like an an assessment thing. And then you continue on. But the whole idea is to engage in something again physically, verbally, visually, to again keep the emotions out so that they don't overrule. I mean, it's not, again, we're human, so we are emotional, but to not let them rule over us, to keep the logic back in and to have a nice reset before you take the next shot.
So I've got to ask, um, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about coaches, elite players too, and I think I would agree with it to some degree. Um, Using your emotions, like as an example, like I think of MJ comes to mind, like that anger and intensity that he showed on the court, like he had a way, like he was able to use and like weaponize that against defenses and other teams and get in their heads. And like I think that is I don't want to say it's a crucial part of sport, but I think I think it is a necessary part of sport. Like if you're playing to win, when you're training yourself to be more logical and be more black and white all the time, how do you then kind of know when to allow yourself to channel the emotions for like productive use, I guess?
It's a great question, Cole. And I thank you because I don't mean to say that emotions have no part in sport. I mean, I wish they didn't, but we're human, so they do. And you're right, we can use them, which is obviously that's what helps you become a better competitor when you can use your emotions. The difference is, and we can just use Michael Jordan because you brought him up. The difference is that yes, he used his emotions, but he was in control of those emotions. He was strategic about those emotions. So what did he do? This was before social media. This was before cell phones, right? The use of all that. He'd have his entourage cut out newspaper clippings of all the naysayers, and he wanted to read them before game night. So before he stepped out onto the court. So he created the emotion for himself, but again, logically he was in charge because he chose when,
Yeah,
how, where.
yeah,
And then I mean, he's probably the athlete that's most known for loving rivalries, right? I mean, he would create rivalries even if there weren't any rivalries. He would create,
right, right.
but again, he was logical about how he chose, which to me is logical, when he was going to feel what he was going to feel. And then when he went out on the court, it was challenge, it was strategy. And so he chose how to use his emotions. And that's something that we all need to do. So instead of our emotions ruling over us, we bring the logic back in so that we can then use the emotion because then emotion is energy.
Yeah, yeah. God, I love that. See, that's something that I never. It sounds so simple when you say it. Like you say it eloquently, and it just like rolls off your tongue. But when I think about it, it's like when you get emotional, when you get up on the golf course, or you get down or on the basketball court, or the baseball field, whatever it is. It does control you, and it's hard to let yourself think like logically, like no, I can be in control of this. Now, in that moment, probably not. You like you're saying, you have to train that. You have to be the person who controls that next step and what your emotion is letting you do.
Yeah. To the best of your ability. So the training, first of all, the training is the key. But that's like anything. I mean, you're training your golf swing, you got to train your mind and your emotions. So the training is the key so that you reduce the probability. You do not eliminate it because again, we're human. You reduce the probability that your emotions take over because now you're coming up with this post-performance routine. You're now strategically thinking how you best play in what emotional state. So you start to do things on purpose, which then reduces the probability that you'll have these outbursts. But again, we're not perfect and we're human, so we still will have outbursts. But then the trick is to have that reset plan. Yesterday, it wasn't golf, it was during work. I got really frustrated, like really, really frustrated because I felt like I asked the right questions. And it depends on who you ask. You get different answers. But, anyways, I got thrown off my work game. I got thrown off my game. And I got really frustrated. And I had a little bit of a vent. Not gonna lie, and I'm not someone who kicks and screams and yells and swears, but for me, I had an emotional reaction. And again, so it wasn't perfect. I didn't prevent it. It was there. But then I've done the training, and so I know that just close my eyes, Haley. Well, I have two options. I can close my eyes or I can actually look outside because nature really brings me calm. Close my eyes, and I did that breathing exercise. Breathe in through my nose, a little bit more through my nose, out through my mouth. So I wasn't perfect, but I'm doing my best to not let those emotions now ruin the rest of my evening. Like, it is going to be short-lived because I'm going to then introduce something I know that works, close my eyes and breathe, or get my head out in the nature and become calm, and then go back to what I was doing in a more logical way. And I think that's the trick that we've got to figure out for us on the golf course, for example.
Yeah. Well, even just like in life, like totally
Life.
unrelated to sports, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Being able to self-regulate, get yourself squared away, and not let I had a shit morning and now my day's ruined. Right? I mean, it's just a prime example of
But
how
we're not
people are not in control of it. They don't have a plan.
exactly, exactly. So, the more we think about it, how can we engage in training that reduces the probability of these emotional outbursts, but understanding that we're still going to have these emotional outbursts. So when we do, how can we get us back to center?
Yeah. Yeah. Redirect. Okay, so this is another. It's just this one just segued into the next question too, Haley. Okay, so in your book, you talk about the 3 ways to get past a mental block: change the situation, change the story, accept, and act. Do you find that it helps people once they've been exposed to like kind of that advice to do it in that order, or is it? Do you find that it works differently and it's maybe just one of the three, or what does that look like? What in your experience?
Yeah, great question. And I do, just because you have to put it in some order when you present it, I do typically present it in, can I change the situation? Can I change the story? And then what do I need to accept and act? The reason why I do that is, and just for people who don't know what we're talking about, I believe that a mental block can be solved or at least move the needle a little bit by one of these three strategies. I have never come across a mental block where one of these three strategies doesn't at least help. And I like the change of situation first, because sometimes if we can change a situation, we don't have to do anything cognitive. We can just manipulate our situation, and that automatically reduces or removes the mental block. So it's almost like sometimes it's an actual easier thing because we don't have to do any mental training, any mental conditioning. We just look
Change
to
the
different.
environment, something like that.
Correct, correct. Example, it's funny, I was talking to a girlfriend, and this is about golf because this was just a couple of days ago. I was talking to a girlfriend, and she finds it hard to play with a few individuals. She's not super competitive. She just wants to go. She's competitive against herself, and she just wants to improve. And then there's some people that really just get her emotionally charged. So the first question is, do you have to play with them? Can you play with other people? So can you
Yeah,
change
like
your situation?
yeah, yeah. Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
So sometimes, and if the answer is, you know what, I can get on a different card. I can get in a different foursome. So that would be, an immediate shift to your mind. But if you can't do that, or you don't want to, because you like this girl and you're really good friends and you want to play with her. So then the next question is can I change the way I look at the situation? And that's reframing. Can I look at this person instead of being intimidated? And this is a different scenario, but there's a lot of intimidation out there. So instead of looking at these people who are playing better than me and now I'm getting intimidated, can I look at them and be like, wow, that was super cool. How did you do that? What can I learn? How can I incorporate that into my practice? Oh, look, they've been playing for 5 years longer than me. Look what I have to look forward to. So now instead of being intimidated, now I'm actually, thank you for showing up because I'm going to use your energy to motivate me. So that's a different way. That's changing the way I look at the situation. But if you can't do that because you can't see all the sunshine and rainbows and butterflies, because right now your life in this moment, whether it's your life or your game or your point, your scorecard, just simply sucks because sometimes it does. Like Novak Djokovic, I don't believe in always thinking positively, but there's always something that I can accept. And so that comes down to the third strategy, accept and act. What is it that I need to accept? I can accept that I've had a pretty, poor performance on these first 9 holes. I can accept that I'm just not driving right today. I can accept that I three putted when I, according to Cole, and we're not supposed to be.
We never do it around here. That's right.
I'm joking, I'm joking. So you accept it, but you don't accept, here's the difference. There's an emotional, if you accept, like, if you're just listening and not watching, I'm throwing my arms up in an acceptance, like giving up, accept. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Give up acceptance. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about accepting with courage. I'm talking about accepting with conviction. This sucks. This is where I am. I accept it. And now what am I going to do? Like you did when you found flow state after your bad shot. What am I going to do on my next, what am I going to do in this moment? And bringing it to basketball, Steph Curry, he talks about next shot mentality. What am I going to do to take control over this next shot and adapt this next shot mentality? So those are the three strategies. And depending on you and your situation and your practice, I just introduce them in that order, but you do you. You do any order you want.
Yeah. I feel like accept and act is got to be the most like impactful of the three because it's oftentimes it's things that are in the past or it's things that are out of your control. And so you either stew on it and you let that, you know, control your negative emotions or you accept it and you act and you take different actions to hopefully create a different outcome.
The accept and the act is a great daily practice because of what you just said. But I will tell you, changing the way you look at the situation can be life altering.
I can see that too.
Just yesterday, I was working with an athlete who, same type of thing. She practices really well, but then when it comes to competition, she's a little bit hesitant. The risk reward, like so in practice, she's willing to risk it. And then in competition, she's more hesitant. The risk isn't. And I asked her, it's called countering, but I asked her to poke holes at her. Why is that? Why is the way you're competing more safe than the way you train? And she's like, and then when she thought of it, she's like, actually, it isn't. Because my body's more hesitant, which actually then I'm more prone to injury. It's not gonna
Yeah.
be as fluid. So she had to actually, like, she goes, "Well, I've never thought about that like that." My coaches just tell me, "Don't worry about it, go all out," and I'm trying to just focus on just going all out, going all out. Like, I don't know if you can go all out if you have this story that is not letting you, that is preventing
Yeah.
you from going all out.
Crippling you. Yeah.
Let's look at this story, let's reframe it, and oh my goodness, the life-altering moment. So I like all three as options, but I do agree with you. The accept and act is something that you can do as a daily practice, I feel like on the cusp. It takes a little bit longer to really find to poke holes in your current story and
Yeah.
to create a new story that's going to best serve you.
Absolutely. And I didn't mean, I guess I poorly worded that. I didn't mean to insinuate that, like, you can get by just doing one of the three. Maybe you can because everybody's different, but it is definitely most advantageous to have all three of those in your arsenal to give yourself the best chance of, hey, how do I get past this? You know? So kind of going to the other side of the coin, confidence. I feel like that's a highly talked about. I feel like there's some people that feel like confidence like isn't a good thing. It gets construed with like cockiness and arrogance, but I've never come across a great athlete, a high level business person, a great salesperson who doesn't have confidence. I just don't see it.
I agree with you. I think it is essential. I think in order for you to be motivated to set goals, I think in order for you to be motivated and focused to take that next step forward, you need some level of confidence. I personally am not a big believer in fake it till you make it. I want to help you find something that you do believe in order to help you get motivated and focused to improve from that point. And I believe we earn our confidence. It is not given to us. And all we
Yeah,
have to do is
100%.
look at a baby trying to crawl, trying to walk, learning to crawl and walk. They've earned the right to feel
Yeah,
like they're ready for the next step.
yeah, yeah. I
Literally.
totally agree. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get hired on with an athlete hires you, I would imagine most of the time they're not lacking in confidence, but I know that some of the time they are. There's like compartmentalizing all the things was a huge talking point for a long time. Tiger Woods was obviously like well known for the guy that can compartmentalize better than anybody. But one is that really healthy? It seemed to has have worked for some individuals, but does it work for the masses, on average? And what do you do? I mean, maybe it's probably specific to the person, but if you do deal with somebody that's lacking in confidence, where do you start? Because I know that there's going to be people listening that have that issue.
It may not be, it may sound harsh. Like, I'm gonna give you my answer. It may sound harsh at first, but then hopefully people understand where I'm coming from, and I come from a place of true caring. When people don't have confidence, I actually think I think it's an easy way out. I don't really accept that. In my private practice, you are not gonna get away with telling me that you have nothing about yourself that you believe in.
I'm so happy you said that.
Good.
That's gonna be a real for sure. That's definitely gonna be a real.
I think it's an easy way out, and I don't accept it. So, you really are here because you want to improve? Then let's start right there, and don't let yourself off the hook, and, let's find something that you do believe in, and let's use that to gain momentum. And you're right, there isn't a professional person out there, a top performing professional person that when you say good job, they say thank you. Yeah, I work my butt off and I have these skills and I've earned it. They're also, the greatest ones are also not afraid to tell you what they need to work on, but they're not going to shy away from telling you what they did right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that's just the fact. That's been my experience too, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I am so
go ahead.
sorry. We do have to cut this short if it's okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to come back. I just do have a call.
That's all good. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to listen. Dr. Haley Perlus, she got a book. Go buy it on Amazon. Follow her on, is your Instagram Dr. Haley Perlus? I think.
I don't know, but I'm the only Haley Perlus that exists in the world, so you'll find me.
Yeah. Anyways.
I think it's Dr. Haley Perlus.
Yeah.
Or H.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening.